The president of the United States is now running away from ceasefire as the goal in Russia, Ukraine. The United States suffering yet another humiliation as Donald Trump welcomed the Ukrainian president, Vladimir Zelensky, to the White House yesterday. The idea was that this would be a sort of counterpart meeting after Fridays with Vladimir Putin. As we saw Friday, Donald Trump literally rolling out a red carpet for Putin, a red carpet that he had American soldiers on their hands and knees flattening out for Putin, taking Putin's word on everything and saying great progress was made, even though not a single concession that was agreed upon, nor even a single concession that was asked of Vladimir Putin has yet been communicated. That was Friday. Cut to yesterday. Zelensky comes to the White House, and it is a pathetic humiliation, starting with Donald Trump in this moment, walking back even the need for a ceasefire, saying, look, all of these other deals I made, wars I ended that Trump claims, which, by the way, is not the case. Trump says you didn't really need a ceasefire there, except the problem is every single one of those was called a ceasefire by Donald Trump. Let me play the clip. It'll make more sense. Then we'll talk about it.
Last week, you warned of what you called severe consequences if a 30-day ceasefire or any type of ceasefire were not agreed to by Russia. Will there be severe consequences? Does that change because of
I don't
meeting
think you
with
need a
President Putin?
ceasefire. You know, if you look at the 6 deals that I settled this year, they were all at war. I didn't do any ceasefires. And I know that it might be good to have, but I can also understand strategically why, well, you know, one country or the other wouldn't want it. You have a ceasefire and they rebuild and rebuild and rebuild, and, you know, maybe they don't want that. But if you look at the 6 deals that we made peace and you know, long-term, long-running wars, I didn't do any ceasefires. I like the concept. You know, I like the concept of a ceasefire for one reason, because you'd stop killing people immediately, as opposed to in 2 weeks or 1 week or whatever it takes. But we can work a deal where we're working on a peace deal while they're fighting. They have to fight. I wish they could stop. I'd like them to stop. But strategically, that could be a disadvantage for one side or the other. But all of these deals I made without even the mention of the words ceasefire.
Now, of course, Donald Trump is either lying or he is so addled and feeble that he doesn't remember that he touted a ceasefire in every single one of those situations. Now, when Trump yesterday was saying, I've ended 6 wars, today he was saying, I've ended 7 wars. You know, that's a story for a different day. But when it came to India, Pakistan, Trump said, we've gotten a ceasefire. When it came to Thailand, Cambodia, Trump says we've gotten a ceasefire. Now, in a lot of these cases, he was lying. It's important to understand it's all lies. Which lie are we focusing on? Are we focusing on the lie that Trump achieved an end to hostilities? Are we focusing on the lie that Trump doesn't really need ceasefires because he didn't have them in those situations, yet he did? You pick which layer of lie we're talking about. But on India, Pakistan, on Thailand, Cambodia, on Israel, Iran, on Israel, Gaza, on Congo, Rwanda. Some of you, I'm sure, are saying, what? I didn't even hear anything about this stuff. Yes, that's another issue. But on all of those, Donald Trump said, we've gotten ceasefires. Clearly, ceasefire is important. But now that this seems unlikely is an understatement with Russia, Ukraine, all of a sudden Trump goes, ceasefire doesn't really matter. Sure, would be nice, but doesn't really matter. Trump and Zelensky during this embarrassing event talking about why aren't there elections in Ukraine? You're not allowed to have elections during a war. That sounds very interesting to me.
Upon peace, God willing we get peace, are you open to holding an election in your country?
Yes, of course. We are open for election, yes. We have to do safety circumstances, and a little bit we need to work in the parliament, because during the war you can't have elections, but we can do security. We need, maybe, how to say, we need a truth, yes, everywhere, in the battlefield, in the sky, and the sea, yeah, to make possible for people to do democratic, open,
Now listen what Trump says. Trump loves this idea.
legal elections.
So you say
we're ready.
during the war you can't have elections. So let me just say 3.5 years from now. So you mean if we happen to be in a war with somebody, No more elections. Oh, that's good. I wonder what the fake
You like
news
this
is.
idea?
Yeah.
This is Trump joking to the extent that he's able to joke. Now, of course, there are really two stories here. Me personally, David Pakman personally, do I like that Ukraine doesn't have elections during war? No, I don't like that. I would, in fact, I think it would be extraordinarily important to continue having elections, even during times of war. Do I recognize that the rules and laws in Ukraine are different than the United States? Yeah, I do. So, of course, Trump going, oh, well, imagine if we had a war going on here, then we couldn't have elections. But of course, that's not the law in the United States. But the bigger picture is, I know Trump's joking here. He's always joking about another term or this and that. What's really terrifying is that this sort of stuff is now met with a collective shrug. You could even hear the laughing in the room as this was said. And it's really not funny anymore. I don't know that it ever was funny, but it's really not funny anymore, given that Donald Trump has shown his authoritarian instincts, his anti-democratic instincts, his instincts that he should just get to decide who's president, who wins an election, who gets to be sworn in. I don't really find anything funny about it. Now, finally, for this part of the discussion, Peter Doocy asks Zelensky just like a wildly loaded question, which is, are you ready to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for years? Nobody asked that of Vladimir Putin. And Putin's the one who started this damn war.
And to that point, President Zelensky, are you prepared to keep sending Ukrainian troops to their deaths for another couple years, or are you going to agree to redraw the maps?
Thank you for your question. So, first of all, we live under each day attacks. That today have been a lot of attacks and a lot of wounded people, and the child was dead, small one year and a half. So we need to stop this war, to stop Russia, and we need support American and European partners. And we will do our best for this. So, I think we show that we are strong people, and we supported the idea of the United States, personally of President Trump, to stop this war, to make a diplomatic way of finishing this war. And we are ready for trilateral, as President said. This is a good signal about
Zelensky's answer is almost irrelevant in the sense that the question, why isn't Putin being asked that very same question? You started this war. How long are you willing to keep sending Russians to their deaths because you can't get off the train at this point in time? So the big picture of the Putin meeting Friday and now the Zelensky meeting is Trump reversing his stance after meeting with Putin. He wanted a ceasefire. Suddenly, there's no ceasefire demand. He even said yesterday, well, ceasefire's nice, but I don't know that we really need it. He's sort of adopting Putin's preference for a direct peace deal rather than a ceasefire. It's a deal that would require Ukraine to give up land in the Donbass, something that he is against and that European allies are against doing. Trump is shifting the responsibility away from the entity that started the war, Vladimir Putin, and putting the responsibility on Zelensky to get it done, which is another way that he's putting the pressure on the nation that is defending itself against an invasion by Vladimir Putin. In his meeting with Putin, he came out saying, amazing meeting, it's a 10, we have this great personal connection, he thinks I'm great, I think he's great. Not at all what Donald Trump came out of the Zelensky meeting saying, taking a much tougher stance against the defensive actor that is in a democracy, which is an interesting takeaway. And then finally, all of this happened in this context where these meetings took place with European leaders at the White House. And European leaders are increasingly alarmed at Donald Trump's shift in stance, which doesn't come as a surprise to us because we know Trump is just so swayed by anything Vladimir Putin says. So Putin gets what he wants. It increasingly seems as though Ukraine will have to give up territory if there's going to be any progress towards a peace deal here. Ukraine is left exposed to continued attacks from Putin. And the burden of resolving this is being placed on Ukraine making concessions rather than the invading force of Russia saying, we are going to get out. That's where it is, and it is a terribly sad thing to see.